The US Treasury just released a shocking report that they need $1.6 trillion before the end of the year. Released on July 28th, you are looking at, from the Treasury itself, their announcement of marketable borrowing estimates between now and the end of the year. During the July through September quarter, the Treasury expects to borrow $1.007 trillion in privately held net marketable debt, assuming an end of September cash balance of $850 billion. So as of the time of this recording, in less than 2 months' time, the Treasury needs to borrow a full $1 trillion. Now I know what you're thinking, but wait, they're rolling debt over. They're gonna use some of that to pay off some of the debt that they owe that needs to be repaid right now. This is just to account for maturing debt. And I know that you probably think that, but the key here is the word net. In other words, there is a lot of debt that's maturing right now that they have to roll over. But this borrowing announcement is talking about the net additional borrowing they have to do on top of all the borrowing that they have to do to pay back all the debt that is coming due. The announcement goes on to detail that in October through December of 2025, the Treasury is going to borrow an additional $590 billion in privately held net marketable debt, assuming an end of December balance of $850 billion. So for the rest of this year, the Treasury is targeting an end of year cash balance of around $850 billion. What does that mean? This is talking about the federal government's checking account called the Treasury General Account. You can see this account currently has a balance of about $421 billion. Whereas usually ever since about 2023, this account is normally hovering around the $800 to $850 billion mark. Now, this is literally just the checking account for the US government. So all tax money and all borrowing money first goes into this account, and then any dollars that they spend go out of this account. And despite the fact that this account used to carry a much smaller balance, for whatever reason now the Treasury really likes to keep it around $850 billion. But considering this quarter, they are going to borrow an additional $1 trillion, and next quarter they're borrowing $590 billion. That means of the total $1.6 trillion that they're borrowing by the end of the year, only about $400 billion of that is going to refill their checking account. That means $1.2 trillion of that excess borrowing has to be done just to accommodate the spending that is in excess of taxes. As of today, the national debt is $36.99 trillion. And considering that deficit, the amount that they're borrowing, which is the amount they spend in excess of the taxes, goes directly onto that national debt pile, we can do some really complicated, fancy math to determine what the national debt will be by the end of this year by taking 36.99 plus 1.6. We can see that by the end of the year, national debt will be just about $38.6 trillion.